Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Kryptonized. Today, joining me is Jake Leicht, spelled Leicht. I think you might be German. I don't know.
Yeah, good
But,
guess. Good guess, Mark. How's it going,
and
man?
then Jake is that because the Germans always make words longer than they need to be.
Yeah,
And,
and sometimes you pronounce it like you're hawking a loogie, that's what I get all the time.
all right, Jake is head of the Flip Secrets community. He does house flipping. My God, I've made more money doing that. He doesn't know this, but I've made more money doing that than anything else except for I have exited a few startups, but I don't even really count that because that's like a team effort.
Yeah.
Where flipping houses for me, while I have a team of contractors, it's really myself and an ex-wife of mine that did a lot of it. Okay, so Jake, why don't you introduce yourself in like 30 seconds, and then we're going to jump right in.
Oh, I'm long-winded. I'll try to keep it under 30, Mark. And I did know that about you. I've seen your podcast before. But yeah, I'm Jake Light. Been flipping houses since 2011, flipping, wholesaling, BRRR, everything you probably imagine when it comes to residential real estate. For the last 5 or 6 years, I started taking some of the things I felt like were missing just in the guru space and started trying to add to my own thing. I felt like there was a disservice being done with the rise of social media. And so I started building a network where it's kind of a collective where everybody can win by sourcing private money, sourcing contractors from all across the country, sourcing real estate agents, and understanding the numbers and trends game that real estate truly is. So it's been a fun ride. Everything was unlocked through doing real estate myself, sometimes the hard way. But that's what brings me here today.
The best part about what you just said is that you didn't start in 2006, 2007, because I was flipping back then, and then the market totally did a huge correction. You're probably well aware of what happened then. 2011 was when I got back into the market, and it was the best time to get in. So, talk about timing.
No, I said in 2006, that's when I had my first job. And I was in the corporate space as a sales guy. And I saw everything happen with the housing market because I started, the American dream was get a house, like see if you qualify for a mortgage. And I saw just every company that we were working with. We did IT training, and every company we're working with, just their budgets got slashed. People were being laid off. And I just saw houses that at the time in the area where I was living, they went from selling for $500,000 down to 150, 175 grand. So I did see it. Unfortunately, I wasn't experiencing it as an investor. Yeah, good timing, definitely. I got lucky there.
This episode sponsored by my company, Smart Blocks, where you can go and tokenize your real estate if you're a developer, or if you're watching from anywhere in the world, you can buy fractions in real estate for as little as $25 a token. Check it out, smartblocks.xyz.
I'm going to start speaking about failure. Why do many people fail in real estate, especially with flipping?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think when it comes to failure, and I'm very well versed in failure. I've had my fair share of failures, but it's twofold. Number one, if you want to get on the technical side, I think that failure, with numbers, people stretching deals, stretching comps, because there's just this eagerness to get into that first deal. A lot of times it happens when someone's brand new and they just want to take, a comparable property that's on the other side of the freeway and allow it to set the value of their house that's on this side of the freeway, even though it's close enough, but not necessarily the same neighborhood. So I think a lot of times people aren't disciplined with their numbers. But I think even more than that, and the exciting part for me about flipping in my own journey, the self-development piece. A lot of times people discount themselves. They're scared of failure. They don't see it as a learning experience. And by doing that, just playing defense and not having a substantial amount of belief in themselves, or maybe not themselves right now, but their potential, they put themselves behind the eight ball from the beginning. I know that was the case with me. It took me a long time of, flipping and getting rentals and learning the hard way that it took me really stepping into like a self-esteem, the way that I viewed myself as, hey, I'm somebody that can be a force to be reckoned with. I'm somebody that can create opportunity around me. Even though I'm younger, at the time in 2011, I felt like I was 20 years younger than most people that were in the space. I was 26 at the time. And I think things have changed because of social media over the last, 10 to 15 years. But a lot of times it's almost like a prophesying. I don't know the correct way to say that.
Prophecy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's people discount themselves to a point where they almost manifest failure. And so I believe that the lens through which we view ourselves and view the market and the opportunities that we can tap into and create rather than wait for them to fall in our lap, I think that has a lot to do with it. Now, let me know if you're tracking with that. I can go in deep on the woo woo side of things. As an investor, it's a lot of logic and it's a lot of numbers, but those are the tools that we have in our tool belt. But the person that has the tools, that's wearing that tool belt, I mean, it's just as important as sharpening that, sharpening the saw or making sure that we're hitting the nails right, if you want to go metaphorically.
Well, I mean, that was a very good explanation, and I'm incredibly impressed you found your confidence. It took a while for me as well. I mean, I just threw myself into it, didn't know what I was doing, and learned along the way. And fortunately, because it was a rising tide in real estate, this was like 2000, 2001. Everything I
Mhm.
did turned to gold until 2007, 2008. And then I had a big loss, which I'm not going to talk about right now. Maybe another day. But
No, that'll be
let's
off record.
move
Yeah.
let's move into you do something interesting with your profits. You put it into blockchain, you put it into Bitcoin, you put it into Ethereum. What's your philosophy behind that?
Yeah. Good question. So when I first learned about real estate, I had a sales job. That company got bought out. They offered me less money right around the same time. I watched the movie The Secret, right? Like, think happy thoughts and you'll have happy results. And also at the same time, I read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week. So my mindset, I quit this job because I thought if I think happy thoughts and work 4 hours a week, I can become a millionaire. Like I was lower middle class, so we didn't have money in our family. I had no trust fund. Um, so I quit that job, started a business, and that business, like the savings that I had, 18,000 bucks, was nothing in 6 months. So I was one of those guys that went to a seminar where at first you think it's free and then, they upsell you. I put the money on my girlfriend's credit card. She's not my wife. I paid her back. But at this seminar, they taught us about numbers and how the real estate trends work. But then there was this kind of side breakout where they talked about the Fed, right? The federal government and the Fed, the Federal Reserve. And I remember, and I went to college. I didn't do much in college, right? I got the diploma though. I have a business degree, and I remember thinking like I didn't know about this stuff. I didn't know much about monetary policy. I didn't know about the control that the Federal Reserve had. And I probably shouldn't say too much because it's going to be on YouTube. But I remember they were talking about that, and the anti-establishment like part of my soul was it was activated. I was like, oh well, this real estate thing, especially if we're using private money and people aren't dependent on banks and instead they're dependent on funding each other. I can get with that. I mean, I listened to Rage Against the Machine as a kid,
Yeah,
right? Like that was like
there you
it
go.
was perfect for me. And so that was a big thing. That was part of my identity as I started, and it really excited me to help people stay away from the banks, self-directed IRAs, investing into real estate, people working with each other rather than through the bank. And it was, I would say, 7 years ago. I had a great buddy named Darren Elias. He was a world poker player of the decade. He just won that award. So I guess a big shout out to him. He was talking to me because he would put money into some of my deals. He was talking to me about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I didn't understand I may have heard about Bitcoin, but didn't quite understand. He started explaining it to me in like at a third grade reading level. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, number one, this is like putting money, like it protects the value of your dollars, right? Or it protects the value of your money or of your currency the same way that real estate protects against inflation. I love that there's a limited supply. And so I started buying Bitcoin using my proceeds from the cash flow that was generated from flipping, back in 2016, 2017 at
And you didn't
$2,000
sell.
per Bitcoin.
You told me you didn't
No,
sell.
I hodl, right? This is some of the stuff I'm learning. Yeah, I have the laser eyes. I have that as, I had that on my Instagram page at one point. But yeah, and I just consistently, like a dollar cost average type thing, I would consistently buy more and more Bitcoin and Ethereum. Never sold it. But I know early on in my career, I would talk to other people that were in the game 6, 7 years, and they said, "Oh, well, I flipped these houses. Now I own, 500 rentals." And I remember thinking, like, feeling unworthy. It's like, yeah, I've got like 4 or 5 rentals. They would call them doors. And so it was also an opportunity for me to take the cash flow that I made from flipping houses and put it into something that created long-term wealth. And I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I did that for years. Bitcoin, it's digital gold, and so I'm a big believer in that. And also really piqued the interest of the anti-establishment side of my soul that I was talking about earlier. And yeah, I mean it. I'm a very big believer in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'll keep it at that.
What's interesting is what we're doing, at Smart Blocks is we've combined real estate and crypto. It's not crypto, it's blockchain. I got to
Hmm.
watch myself in saying that. So
Yeah, no,
tokenization,
two
of
separate
course, is
things.
it is it's two separate things. I'm glad you know that. So, what are your thoughts around tokenized real estate? And do you think at some point you'll want to use that as a funding option or as a creative option for buying more doors, as you say? Maybe you get to the 500 doors faster because you could throw up these projects and get them funded within a couple of months.
Yeah, yeah. So now, can I go over it to make sure I understand it correctly? Can I like
Absolutely,
I'm the I'm
or
the
I can. Yeah.
layman, like I'm the third grade reading level type vocabulary type of guy. So tokenization of real estate, if I understand it correctly,
Yes.
like if I'm using not hypothetical, the situation that I typically have, which is I put a property under contract, I source private money to fund 100% of the project. I
Yeah.
flip the house, they get debt, it's a debt structure, so they get interest back
Yeah.
along the way, and then when I sell it, they get paid back their principal. So the tokenization, the way that I understand it, means that rather than an investor wiring 100K to a title company, instead we sell tokens for maybe a smaller price point, where it opens up the floor for folks with a lower threshold of what they can invest into the deal to be able, 50, $100 at a time to buy tokens for the project. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
And
Anywhere
then
in the world, though, that's the difference.
yeah, yeah. I love it. I've never done it. I know that you're from Carlsbad. Most of my private lenders are, retired men and women that just kind of live on the beach or living their best life. And, they learned something back in the day that they, rather than putting money into the stock market, which some of them do, they like to invest in trust deeds, which is essentially they're giving me a
Yeah.
private mortgage to be able to flip a home. It's funny. One of my main lenders, he's an older guy. I remember talking to him about Bitcoin because he would do some stuff with the stock market, and I think Bitcoin was $25,000 at the time. I said, "What do you think about this?" And he said, "Oh, it's never going to last. I'll buy it if it goes down to $500 again." I'm not going to insult the guy's intelligence or the number of years that he's been in.
You haven't called them up and said and send them the ticket, the price now.
No, well, I mean, if you look at it right now, I mean, you look at the BlackRock and the Fidelity having the ETFs,
Yeah.
they're investing into it at $60,000 now, whereas
No, but I'm
5 years ago.
I thought maybe you would have teased them with, oh, you didn't want to invest at 25, but it's at
Oh
70
no,
now. So
no, they would pull their funds back from my deals. No, I mean they're
that's
they're good
true.
guys
That's true.
and maybe talk a little bit of trash, but I mean
Yeah.
uh the lenders that I've used, they just want to wire funds directly, into a title account. But
Right.
with social media, the exposure that comes from social media, as you know, I mean, the exposure opens up so many more doors for somebody to invest into a deal that's tokenized, I guess you would call it, where they previously didn't even think it was possible. Probably didn't think that they had a seat at the table. And then all of a sudden, if we tokenize some of these deals and projects, I mean, yeah, they have a seat right there at the table. There's a seat that's saved for them.
Yeah, it really democratizes investment. But what people don't realize is because now it's global, you have family offices, you have big institutions around the world that want to invest in U.S. real estate, and so they'll buy a bunch of tokens for projects that they deem worthy. More on the larger side, we get into institutions they want to buy big commercial real estate projects, but you open up the world to whatever it is that you want to do here through tokenization, and that's just one thing. The second thing is, of course, you got a secondary market to trade these tokens, and once that opens up, your property value goes up because it's a liquid investment. It's not just an investment that, well, you pay off pretty fast though, so it might not make that aspect of it might not make a difference, but certainly the international appeal to bringing in more money quickly and at better terms, because in Japan the interest rate might be 2%. So it just depends on where you're sourcing it from. But
Yeah,
go
and
ahead. I
I
interrupted
think
you.
that adapting to the market is an important thing. That's what we do with local markets and trends. Like if let's say Austin,
Yeah.
Texas, or San Diego, Carlsbad, California, markets kind of go up and down in different regions, and adaptation is everything when it comes to business and being able to keep up with how fast the world is going. So I love the. I don't have the personal experience, but I'm intrigued as hell by the idea of it now that
Yeah.
we're dipping our toes into that social media space that gets us that exposure. So I like it. I
Love it.
like what you're doing over there.
All right. Well, let's wrap up. You have a course, right, that people can take a look at about how to flip homes, and not with tokens yet, but I'm going to get that to be another module in your course eventually.
Yeah,
But tell people about how do people find you, and where do they take your course?
yeah. I hang out on Instagram the most. It's at Jake Light, and again, it's Leicht. But yeah, we have a range of courses. I think if somebody's interested in getting into real estate, especially using private money, other people's money, it's a numbers game. So I just have a free calculator out there with an explainer. We actually did a URL. It's theflipsecrets.com/kryptonized. And they can find that there. It's free. There's an explainer video on how to use it. And just so people can gain the exposure to how simple this game can be if you just look at the numbers and trends and kind of get the emotional side out of it. So that would be it. I think they'll enjoy it, and I think it'll be eye-opening for the audience.
Love it. All right. With that, Jake, pleasure to have you, and I'll send you my write up on the addendum to your course so people can
Yeah,
see the
yeah, absolutely.
tokenization
We'll
side.
talk. We'll talk after this is done.